Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I grew up in a quiet patch of rural Pennsylvania in the late 1980s, the kind of place where everyone knew your last name, your dad's job, and what car you drove before you even had a license. My town wasn't much, just a diner, a hardware store, a small police station with one bored officer on night shift, and a cluster of houses surrounded by thick woods that always smelled like damp pine and gasoline from the old sawmill. I wasn't a popular kid, just normal, average at everything. I hung out mostly with a boy named Troy Halpern, who lived 2 houses down from me. Troy was energetic in a way that made adults nervous. He wasn't bad, not really, but he had this streak in him, this fascination with danger, with proving he was tougher, braver, louder than anyone else. Even when we were 8, he was the kind of kid who'd jump off roofs just to see how much it hurt or dare someone to lick a frozen pole in winter. For $5, dude. And then there was Leo Barrick, small, skinny, asthmatic, always wearing hand-me-down clothes. The kid who teachers forgot to call on. He wasn't exactly my friend, not the way Troy was, but he tagged along a lot, mostly because he didn't have anyone else. And even though Troy pretended he hated having Leo around, he always let him stay. Maybe because it made Troy feel bigger, more powerful, more in control. My parents worked long shifts, mom at the local clinic, dad driving trucks out of Harrisburg. Weekends, especially summer weekends, were just me, freedom, and trouble waiting to happen. And trouble usually wore Troy's face. It was a Saturday in late July, hot enough that the tar on the road got soft and stuck to your shoes. Troy showed up at my door around noon, sweat already dripping from his dark hair. "Yo," he said, breathless like he'd run the whole way. "You gotta come see what I found." I asked him what, but he just smirked and said, "Dude, trust, just come." When a 10-year-old says trust me, it usually means don't. But of course I followed him. We met Leo halfway down the street. He was carrying a warm can of Coke and looked like he was already regretting being alive. "What did you find, Troy?" Leo asked nervously. "You'll see." He led us off the pavement, through a gap in the trees, into the woods behind the sawmill trail. It was our usual hangout, a half-finished fort we'd been building out of rotting boards and stolen nails. But today, something was different. Troy had a backpack, and he was too quiet. "Troy," I said as we stepped into the clearing, "what's going on, dude?" He swung the backpack off his shoulders, crouched, and unzipped it slowly like he was performing a magic trick. He looked up at us with that grin he always got before he did something stupid. "You guys ready?" No one answered, so of course he continued. He pulled out a pistol, a black, heavy-looking thing with worn edges and a metal grip. My stomach dropped. Leo made this squeaky gasp and nearly spilled his Coke. "What the hell, Troy?" I snapped. "Where'd you get that?" "Relax," he said casually, weighing it in his hand like he'd held one 100 times. "It's my uncle's old gun. He kept it in this box under his bed. I've seen it 1,000,000 times." "You stole it?" I said, voice cracking. Troy shrugged. "I borrowed it." "Borrowed? Dude!" I grabbed my hair. "You can't borrow a gun." Leo backed up until he hit a tree trunk. "Troy, bro, that's a real gun," Leo whispered, "like real. "No shit, genius," Troy snorted, "and I got something else." He reached back into the bag. "Troy," I warned. He pulled out a small metal cylinder, rusty, round, heavy-looking. "What is that?" I asked softly. Leo answered before Troy could. "That's a grenade," he whispered. "Holy crap, holy crap, holy crap." Troy put it down. Troy smirked. "Correct. An old pineapple grenade, probably from like Vietnam or something. My uncle collects all kinds of junk." It took me half a second to notice the worst part. There was no pin. "No way," I murmured. Leo saw it too and burst into panic. "Dude, that's live! That thing's live! That'll kill us! Troy, what are you doing?" Troy held it lightly, tapping the lever with his thumb. "It only goes boom if I let go," he said softly, almost dreamily. "See? I don't let go. We're good." "Troy, stop it," I said immediately. "This isn't funny." But he kept talking, voice too calm. "You know what my uncle always says? Heroes die young. Maybe we go out legendary. They'd talk about us forever." "What the hell are you talking about?" I snapped. "This isn't a war movie, dude. We die in the stupidest way possible." Leo was shaking so hard he could barely breathe. Please, Troy, I don't want to die, man. I got a dog. I just got a new bike. Please. And Troy's smile only grew. You guys freak out too much, he said. You gotta toughen up. And then he stepped toward us. Reflex took over. I lunged, grabbed the grenade from his hand, and hurled it as far as I could. We all ducked. Silence. Then Troy burst out laughing. "Oh man, you should have seen your faces. It's fake, just a model. It doesn't even have powder inside. Look." I stared at him, chest pounding, then slowly, reluctantly, laughed in relief. Leo wasn't laughing, but he wasn't crying anymore either. "Dude," I said, hands on my knees. "You're such an asshole." He grinned. Best prank ever. He had no idea what was about to happen next. We were still laughing when I shoved Troy lightly on the shoulder, just playful, just a you idiot shove. He stumbled back. Something heavy clunked against a rock. Crack. The sound was deafening, a metallic pop that echoed through the trees like thunder. My ears rang instantly. Troy's face drained of color. Leo collapsed like someone cut his strings. For a moment I couldn't process anything. Then my eyes locked onto Leo's forehead. Blood. A small, horrifying smear of red just above his eyebrow. I felt the world tilt. "Leo!" I screamed, Riton, dropping to my knees beside him. "Leo, bro, buddy, dude, talk to me." Troy was frozen, trembling. Oh God, oh Jesus, oh shit, did it fire? It wasn't loaded. It wasn't supposed to be loaded. "Call someone," I yelled. "We don't have phones," Troy shouted back in panic. I tore off my shirt and pressed it against Leo's head. He groaned, a groan, a real one. "Oh my God," I whispered. "You're alive." His voice was soft and shaky. "It burns." "Dude, what happened?" "You got grazed," I said, trying to breathe. "Bullet must have hit the bone. You're not dead. You're good. You're good. Stay awake." Troy dropped to his knees, shaking uncontrollably. "I didn't mean it," he kept saying. "I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Oh God, they're gonna kill me. My mom's gonna... It wasn't my fault." "It was your fault," I snapped. "You brought a damn gun into the woods." We needed help, and fast. We got Leo to the road and waved down a passing pickup. The man driving nearly had a heart attack when he saw the blood. Within minutes, Leo was in the local clinic. Within an hour, every cop in our tiny town was involved. And Troy. I had never seen someone cry like that. He was hysterical, shaking so violently he looked like he might pass out. His mother looked like she aged 10 years in a single afternoon. The gun belonged to Troy's uncle, who swore up and down it wasn't loaded, that it hadn't worked in years. But apparently a jammed round was sitting in the chamber. When it hit the rock, bang. The only miracle was the angle. 1 inch lower and Leo would have been gone forever. The police gave Troy's family a warning, a stern one. But because of the laws then, and because it was an accident, and because Leo survived, they didn't press charges. Troy wasn't allowed to see us for months. His parents burned his toy soldiers and model guns. They grounded him the whole summer, and they forced him into counseling. By middle school, Leo had become a legend. The kid who got shot and lived. Kids asked to see the scar. Girls liked him more. Teachers treated him like glass. And he owned it. He made jokes about it constantly. "Hey, at least Troy didn't shoot me in the butt." Or, "Technically, I'm bulletproof where it counts." We stayed friends, good friends. Troy changed completely. No more stunts, no more dangerous games. He became quiet, almost too careful. We never brought up that day, not once. But every time he saw Leo's scar, I caught him staring at it with this haunted, guilty look. The kind that sticks with you for a lifetime. We grew up. Life happened. Troy moved to Ohio, became a mechanic. Good guy, responsible, humble. Still apologizes to Leo every time we meet, like clockwork. Leo became a paramedic. He says surviving being shot made him want to keep other people alive. Me, I just tell the story sometimes when we're drinking, half joking, half emotional. Remember when our idiot friend shot you in the damn head? We laugh now. We can, because we're still here. But sometimes, late at night, I think about it. I think about how easy it is for a life to go sideways. How 1 second, 1 slip, 1 stupid prank can end everything. I think about the gun on the rock. the echo in the trees, Leo falling. The smile of a kid who thought he was invincible. The smile of someone who didn't understand how close he came to becoming a killer. People say horror is about monsters, but they're wrong. Sometimes horror is a friend who doesn't know how dangerous he really is. I grew up in Briarwood Springs, a small tree-hugged town tucked somewhere between the nowhere parts of Oregon. My mom used to call it peaceful. I used to call it boring. But now, when I look back, the only word that comes to mind is dangerous, because that quiet little town is where I met the worst friend I have ever had in my entire life. His name was Trent Hollister. Even saying that name out loud still puts a kind of cold pressure behind my ribs. Not fear. More like the body remembering something it spent years trying to forget. When I first met Trent, I was 5. My mom was friends with his mom from church. They'd talk after service about casseroles and potlucks and whatever grown-ups liked then. They always sounded cheerful, like their lives were some sunshine-soaked Hallmark movie. Meanwhile, I was stuck on the rug in the church basement with Trent, who, from the very first moment, decided he owned me. He didn't ask to be my friend. He declared it. I remember him standing over me while I played with a beat-up toy fire truck. His skinny little finger tapped my forehead twice. "You're with me," he'd said. "Okay?" It wasn't a question. Even at 5, I knew the tone. I remember mumbling, "Okay," because what was I supposed to do? Say no? He had this stare, hard and glassy, like a kid version of someone who'd seen war. Something wasn't right about him. Kids aren't supposed to look at other kids like prey. And from that day forward, I wasn't a friend to Trent. I was property. Trent was clever in a way that made adults smile and children nervous. Someone would drop a cupcake at a birthday party, and Trent's face would stay innocent while his foot casually smashed the frosting deeper into the carpet. Someone would tattle about missing crayons, and Trent would have them hidden in a pocket of his backpack with a perfect alibi. He always knew how to angle his body, how to block an adult's view, how to weaponize the silence between words. He figured out how to hurt without leaving marks. At first, he'd pinch the inside of my upper arm during story time, the fleshy part that bruised fast but wasn't often seen. He'd lean his elbow into my thigh under the table and whisper, without moving his lips, "Don't look at anyone else. You look at me." Teachers would see me jump or wince and call me sensitive, jumpy, emotional. Kids started calling me Crybaby Carter. Yeah, Carter was my name. Still is. And sometimes Trent wouldn't even speak. He'd just pull a rubber band from his pocket and flick it against the back of my neck when no one was watching. Little snaps of pain that made me tear up instantly. And those tears, God, those tears were his trophy. Once at recess, he held my wrists behind my back and said, "You ever been choked with your own shirt?" before yanking my collar so tight around my throat that the edges blurred and my feet scraped the ground. When I finally coughed hard enough that my stomach heaved, he let go. I threw up in the dirt. He stepped back, dusting his hands dramatically. "You barf too easy, dude," he said, like it was my fault. No one saw. No one ever saw. He trained me to stay quiet, trained me to freeze when he touched me, trained me to smile around adults so they'd think everything was normal. And worst of all, he trained me to believe he was my only friend, and because he blocked me from talking to anyone else, tripping me if I walked toward other kids, whispering threats if I dared laugh with someone, I really did think that was friendship, that this was how it worked. Childhood is so stupid sometimes. You don't know what's wrong until much later. I didn't like going to Trent's house. Something about it never felt human. His family was rich in that "this hoe use looks like a magazine but feels colder than hospital lobby" way. His dad, actually stepdad, was one of those booming, red-faced polo shirt guys who said "champ" too loudly and had a pickup truck with a flag sticker in the back window. His mom was sweet on the outside but had this frazzled look in her eyes, the type of woman who'd apologize if someone else stepped on her foot. Trent had his own room, with toys lined up perfectly on shelves he never let me touch. A giant bunk bed dominated one wall. Bottom bunk for him, top bunk for me, always. "You're older," he'd say. "Big kids sleep up top." Truth was, he was scared of heights, and I was scared of him. So I'd climb the ladder, listening to it creak as he held the bottom like he was tempted, always tempted, to yank it away. At night, I'd lie awake staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on his ceiling, praying he'd just fall asleep and not start one of his games. But of course, he always did. He'd wake me with a poke through the mattress springs or a hissed whisper, "Get down here." And if I hesitated, he'd threaten, "I'll tell your mom you cursed," or "I'll break your Game Boy," or straight up, "I'll hurt you." He didn't even bother to hide who he was in the dark. I was 9. Trent was 9. It was late May, warm enough that the air felt like it stuck to your skin. My parents were out of town for a family thing I wasn't invited to. My mom kissed my cheek and said, "You'll have fun with Trent," with that full, blissful ignorance only adults seem to master. I didn't argue. I'd stopped arguing years ago. I went to Trent's house with a backpack of pajamas and my favorite t-shirt with a faded alien on it. By 9 p.m., we were in bed. Trent on the bottom, me on the top. Sometime after midnight, I woke to his hand gripping my wrist. "Wake up," he said, shaking me harder than he needed to. "Dude, wake up." What? I mumbled. He tossed water in my face, lukewarm, smelling faintly like toothpaste. Not enough to drown me, just enough to shock me. "Get up, we're going out." "Huh? Out where?" "The park." "We're not supposed to." His fingers pinched the underside of my arm so fast and sharp I sucked in a breath. "Don't backtalk," he said. "Come on." I got dressed as fast as I could, still in my pajama pants but wearing my sneakers. Trent wore jeans and a hoodie like he'd been planning this. We sneaked past his parents' room. His stepdad snored loud enough to shake the hallway. Outside, the night felt too still, quiet in a way that made sound seem illegal. The park was 4 blocks away and only had one lamp working, a pale orange one flickering like a dying candle. The place was empty. Of course it was. The jungle gym towered in the middle, a metal skeleton reaching for the sky. The kind built in the 90s before safety regulations stopped manufacturers from making kids' equipment that high. Trent pointed at it. "Climb up." "What? Why?" "Because I said so, Carter. Jesus, why do you always gotta ask stuff? Just climb." I knew the rules. Argue equals pain. Obey equals maybe less pain. So I climbed. The metal bars were cold and slick with dew. My fingers wrapped around them, and I tried not to look down, even though I wasn't afraid of heights. I was afraid of what was beneath me, Trent. When I reached the top, I sat carefully, gripping the rail. "Okay," I whispered. "I'm here." "Do a handstand." I blinked. "I can't." "Do it." I can't, Trent. "I'll fall." He shrugged. "Suit yourself." I saw him move slightly, but the light was too dim to see his hands. Before I could ask what he was doing, something slammed into the side of my head. White exploded in my vision. My ears rang so loud it sounded like a bomb went off beside me. Instinctively, I flinched, and because I was perched on a narrow bar, flinching meant falling. I fell 12 feet. I hit the ground so hard the world cracked. Literally. I heard something snap inside me like a stick breaking under a boot. Air whooshed out of my lungs. My vision smeared. Everything sounded underwater. I tried to cry out but only made a croaky wet noise. I tasted blood, metallic and thick. I couldn't move. Not my legs, not my arms, not even my head, just my eyes. They rolled toward the sound of footsteps. Trent, he sat down cross-legged in front of me like he was settling in for a movie. "You know," he said conversationally, "this is kinda your fault." My mind screamed even though my mouth couldn't. He picked up the rock he'd thrown, a sharp triangular one, the kind landscapers put around trees. "You should have done the handstand," he said with a shrug. "I told you, you don't listen." I tried to speak, tried to beg, tried to ask him to get help. Not a single sound came out. Trent leaned closer, his breath hot on my cheek. "You're not dying," he said, almost disappointed. "Not yet." The pain hit then, all at once. White-hot lightning exploding through my legs, my chest, my skull. My vision blurred. I tasted blood again. My body felt far away like I was floating out of myself. I wanted to pass out. God, I wanted to, but I didn't. I was trapped, in pain, in my body, in the dark, with the boy who had finally done what he'd always wanted, broken me. He kept talking, for an hour, an entire hour. He rambled about how I needed him, how I wouldn't have gotten hurt if I had just obeyed, how he was the one suffering now because he'd have to explain this to adults. He even cried at one point, not for me, for himself. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime of drowning in pain, he stood. "I guess I gotta get Mom," he muttered. "But if you tell them I did anything, I swear I don't remember the rest." I blacked out. I woke up in a hospital bed with lights burning my eyes and a nurse yelling for a doctor. Turns out I had a fractured skull, a fractured cheekbone, 2 broken legs, a broken arm, 5 fractured ribs, 2 fractured vertebrae. My parents were already crying when I came to. The police were outside the room, and the moment a detective asked, "What happened?" something broke loose inside me. Everything spilled out. All the years of bullying, all the pain, all the threats, every pinch, every slap, every choke, the rock, the fall, the hour he watched me bleed. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. And for the first time in my life, adults believed me. The doctor confirmed the wound on my head wasn't from a fall, it was from an impact, a thrown object. Trent's parents tried to deny everything until the detective showed them the bruise patterns, the shapes, the trajectory, the way my injuries lined up with abuse, not an accident. Trent didn't go to juvie, he was too young, but he was sent to some behavioral correction camp in Washington. Long-term, expensive, the kind with padded walls and constant supervision. I never saw him again. He wrote me a letter when we were 12, a full page of "I'm sorry," but it didn't sound sorry. It sounded annoyed that I had survived, that adults found out, that he no longer had me to control. My parents let me burn the letter in the fireplace, and that helped more than any therapy session ever did. I still walk with a limp. I still get migraines. There's a scar behind my right ear where surgeons had to relieve pressure from swelling, but the worst injury wasn't physical. It was learning how trust worked again, learning to talk to people without waiting for pain to follow, learning to look at friendship without hearing Trent's voice in the back of my skull. It took years to understand that friendship isn't ownership, that kindness isn't a trick, that being loved isn't something you earn through obedience. Sometimes I wonder where Trent is now, if he grew up normal, if he got worse, if he remembers what he did. But then I tell myself the truth. He doesn't matter. Not anymore. I survived him. And that is the best revenge anyone could ask for. If by some impossible chance Trent ever reads this, then I want him to know one thing. You almost killed me, but you didn't break me, and you never will. I still don't know the exact moment everything went downhill, but if you asked me to point at when life stopped making sense, I'd probably say the summer before senior year. That's when Darren's slate cracked. Back then, I thought he was just my goofy best friend, a skinny mop-haired kid from Fogwood, Oregon, who collected weird t-shirts, loved old Xbox games, and laughed with this wheezy snort that embarrassed him so much he'd cover his mouth with his sleeve every time he did it. We met in 9th grade during PE, when Coach Hank forced everyone to pick dodgeball teams. Nobody wanted me, I was short, awkward, and looked like a dehydrated chicken. Nobody wanted Darren either. He couldn't throw to save his life and looked like he'd just sprouted into his limbs overnight. Coach Hank blew the whistle and yelled, "All right, Slayton Reynolds, you're captains. Everyone else figure it out." Darren looked around, panicked in his eyes, and pointed at me. You look fast," he said. "No, man," I told him. "I look like a broomstick." He grinned. "Yeah, okay, then we'll lose together." And that was it. Instant friendship. We spent lunches in the art hallway making dumb sketches and imitating teachers. He called me Ray, and I called him Slate, because we thought using last names made us sound cooler, like comic book characters. But as much as I loved the guy, I didn't realize how fragile he was underneath all that laughter. I didn't know how badly loneliness could twist a person. And I sure as hell didn't know he would one day terrify the absolute shit out of me. It started with a stupid accident. 2 weeks before summer break, Darren wiped out on his bike while trying to race down Fogwood Hill, a massive, stupidly steep road none of us had any business biking down. I remember running to him, heart in my throat, yelling, Dude, stop moving, what are you doing? Your leg looks like a pretzel." He was trying to stand, his face pale, teeth gritted. "Ray, my mom's gonna kill me." "Dude, your leg is killing you." Hospital, surgery, crutches, then a full cast. That whole summer, Darren stayed inside. I visited at first, we played games, watched movies, and messed around online. But after a while, he stopped answering the door. His mom would tell me, he's sleeping, or he's online with his friends. The way she said friends told me even she didn't believe it. Whenever I messaged him, all he'd say was, busy run, on a call, watching stuff. I figured he was just depressed. Being stuck inside can rot anybody's brain. But then he started posting. At first it was normal stuff, memes, anime clips, screenshots, funny captions. Then it escalated, really fast. I won't repeat everything he posted. Some of it was outright humiliating. But it had a theme, animated girls. A lot of animated girls. And none of them were wearing much. It wasn't the interest in anime that scared me. I mean, I was into plenty myself. Death Note, Full Metal, AOT, all that. It was the tone, the obsession, the way he talked like he didn't live in Fogwood anymore, but in some fantasy world where shy girls tripped into his arms and called him senpai. People commented, dude, WTF? What happened to you? Delete this, man. Allow someone take his phone. But he kept going. I tried messaging him. Me. Bro, you good? Darren. Never better. Me. You sure? Darren. I'm awakened, dude. Me. Darren. You wouldn't get it. He wasn't joking. It felt like he was sinking into some online world, replacing reality with fantasy. And then school started again. I'll never forget what happened the day I saw his room. It was early September. Fogwood air was cold and damp, that typical Pacific Northwest chill that sticks to your bones. His cast had finally come off. He sent me a text. Come over, I want to show you something. For the first time in months, I didn't hesitate. I was excited, honestly. Maybe we'd go back to normal. Maybe we'd play Xbox, talk crap about teachers, go get burgers at Benny's. I walked into his room and froze. Shelves, wall-to-wall shelves, and every shelf filled with figures. Not normal collectible figures. Not Goku, not Levi, not cool characters. No, girls. Hundreds of animated girls. In underwear, out of underwear. Poses I didn't even know they made plastic for. My stomach twisted so hard I felt dizzy. Darren beamed at me like he'd won an award. What do you think, Ray? Pretty sick, right? You spent all summer on this? He nodded proudly. There's more coming. I pre-ordered like 20. Dude, are you serious? Is your mom okay with all this? She doesn't come into my room anymore, he said. Privacy, man. I stepped around the room like I was walking through a landmine field. The eyes of those figures followed me, or at least that's how it felt. I swear some were posed facing the bed and it made my skin crawl. Slate, I said softly. This is a lot. He shrugged. It's art, expression, a lifestyle. Yeah, I muttered. It's definitely something. He didn't hear the tremble in my voice. I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth that day. I felt like my best friend had become someone I didn't recognize. When school resumed, Darren was worse. He didn't just post about his fantasy world, he lived in it. He talked like those characters. He referred to girls as waifus. He made comments that got him weird looks every 5 minutes. But I stuck around, maybe out of loyalty, maybe out of habit, maybe because I didn't want to abandon the kid who'd picked me first in dodgeball. But I knew people were laughing. I'd hear it in the halls. Slate's lost it. Bro thinks he's in a cartoon. His room probably smells like sadness. Sometimes they'd rope me in. Aren't you Slate's boyfriend? I mean, best friend? You hang with that dude? Yikes. You into that weird cartoon girl crap too, Reynolds? I brushed it off and joined other friend groups more often, Cody, Finn, and Jared. 3 skater kids who hung out behind the gym and did dumb tricks on the stairs, but I still didn't cut Darren off. I should have. God, I should have. Because everything changed when Lily Tran arrived. She came from Seattle, short, quiet, always carrying a sketchbook. Her smile was soft, like she didn't want to bother anyone with it. And Darren fell in love instantly. He told me on day 1, Ray, that's her. That's who? I asked. My soulmate. Dude, you don't even know her name. She looks like she belongs in a slice-of-life anime, bro. That's fate. I shut my locker. No, that's mental illness. He smacked my shoulder. You'll see. I thought he'd approach her like a normal person. Nope. He went full fantasy mode. 3 days into the semester, Lily opened her locker and a pink envelope fell out. The handwriting was messy but dramatic. I know because she showed me later. To the gentle blossom who walks between worlds. That was the first line. I nearly vomited. She found the second note 2 days later. Then the third. But she caught him that time. She turned the corner just as Darren slipped the envelope through the vents of her locker door. He froze like someone had unplugged him. Hi, she said kindly. You got the messages from the mysterious admirer? He stammered. She smiled awkwardly. Darren, right? I'm really flattered. But I'm not looking to date anyone right now. I'm sorry. Most guys would have backed off. But Darren wasn't living in our world anymore. Because Lily, being a genuinely good human, tried to stay polite, tried to stay friendly, tried not to hurt him, and he mistook that for interest. He followed her around, sat by her at lunch, interrupted conversations, showed her pictures of new figurines like it was normal. I remember one day in the cafeteria, Darren shoved his phone in her face. Look, Lily, he said, this one's from my newest collection. She's the shy, bookish type, like you. Lily's face went white. I stepped between them. Bro, back up. She doesn't want to see that. Darren frowned. Ray, don't be rude. I'm literally protecting your ass. Lily tugged my sleeve later in the parking lot. Can we talk? She asked quietly. We sat in my car, fog collecting on the windshield. She started crying, soft, trembling, scared tears. I don't want to be mean, she whispered. I don't want him to think I hate him, but he makes comments, and he stares, and he messages me these things. I don't know what to do. She showed me the DMs. My hands clenched so tight my knuckles turned white. Beautiful Lily drawings, creepy fantasies, weird anime talk about claiming his waifu. All from Darren, my best friend. I felt sick. Lily, I swear, I told her, I'll handle this. She nodded slowly. Please, I just want him to stop. I meant it with every fiber in my body. I just had no idea how far Darren was about to go. The next morning in the quad, I confronted him. Slate, listen to me, I said firmly. You gotta stop messaging Lily. He blinked. Messaging who? Don't play dumb. She showed me everything. His jaw clenched. She wasn't supposed to. Doesn't matter. You're harassing her. He stepped closer, eyes unfocused, breathing heavy. She's my destiny, Ray. Why are you trying to sabotage? Bro, she's uncomfortable. Just stop. He opened his mouth, but something in my face must have convinced him, because he nodded stiffly and walked away. It worked for like 5 days. Then the horror began. Monday morning, explicit drawings taped to Lily's locker. Tuesday, a used condom planted in her backpack. Wednesday, someone keyed slut into the hood of my car. Thursday, printouts of Lily's face edited onto those stupid anime bodies scattered across the girl's bathroom. Friday, someone wrote Ray steals waifus on my locker in black marker. By then, everyone knew. Everyone guessed the culprit, but nobody had proof yet. And Darren avoided me like I carried the plague. Until he didn't. It was lunchtime. Fogwood High's quad was buzzing. Kids skateboarding, eating, yelling, tossing footballs. Lily and I were sitting on the brick wall near the trees, sharing fries from the cafeteria. She was quieter than usual, scared, exhausted. I wish he'd just leave me alone, she said softly. I'll take care of it, I promised. I swear he won't get near you again. Then we both heard it. Lily, Darren stormed across the quad, face red, hair messy, eyes wild like he hadn't slept in days. Students cleared a path instinctively. He pointed at her with a shaking hand. You, he hissed. You made me look like a joke. You let him. He jabbed a finger toward me. You let him take you away from me. Darren, stop, I said, stepping between them. But he shoved me aside and grabbed Lily's arm. She yelped. What the hell? I yelled. He yanked her closer, wrapping his arms around her in a forceful, desperate hug. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm sorry, my blossom. I didn't mean... His hand slid across her chest. She screamed. Everything inside me went red. I tackled him so hard we both hit the pavement. And then I lost control. Punches, fists, rage, years of frustration melting into violence. I don't know how many times I hit him before someone pulled me off. All I remember was his face, bruised, bleeding, stunned. Security dragged me into the office. Students whispered. Someone filmed everything. The school suspended me for a month while they reviewed the situation. But Lily told the truth. Witnesses told the truth. Security footage told the truth. Darren had grabbed her, touched her, harassed her for weeks. I didn't get expelled. I didn't get arrested. But Darren, he vanished, transferred schools. And through late-night curiosity, I found his Facebook months later. He'd repeated senior year. He looked heavier, hollow, more lost than ever. Some part of me felt pity, but most of me felt fear, because I knew he still didn't understand what he did wrong. And people like that, people who live in fantasies, they don't disappear. They wait. They stew. They are to blame. Even now, 6 years later, Lily sometimes asks, "Do you think he'll ever come back?" I always tell her no. But in the quiet moments, when my phone pings late at night, when I hear rustling outside on a still foggy evening, when I see a shadow move near the edge of our yard, I think about his room full of figures, those unblinking plastic eyes, the fixation, the obsession, the way reality never mattered to him. And sometimes, God help me, I wonder if Darren Slade ever left Fogwood at all. I always wondered at what exact moment a person crosses the line from being a weird friend to being a walking red flag you should have cut off years ago. For me, that moment came in the fall of 2009 in a quiet college town called Willow Creek, buried somewhere between cornfields and cheap fast food franchises. And the guy who dragged me into that mess was Riker Holt. Riker wasn't born strange. He grew into it like mold growing on old bread. And somehow, some way, he stuck to me like gum on a shoe from the moment we met in 7th grade. By the time we were in college, Riker had become the kind of guy everyone in town knew for the wrong reasons. But back then, he was just that oddball friend who never quite fit anywhere except in my shadow. Riker lived with his grandmother in a fading yellow house near the train tracks. She was a sweet lady, God bless her, but Riker treated their home like a storage unit for his junk and an overnight motel for himself. He always said he was too restless to sleep in the same bed more than 2 nights in a row. Translation? He couch surfed. Constantly. My room, my friend Liam's attic, the basement of whoever didn't have the energy to say no. And every time I tried to put distance between us, somehow he'd show up again like he had a sixth sense for when my guard was down. It started on a cold Thursday night when I was sitting in my dorm, earphones in, grinding through an overdue essay. The window was cracked open because the heater was blasting too much heat, and that's when I heard it. "Yo, open up, bro." Riker's voice. I froze. He hadn't texted, he hadn't called, and dorm security definitely didn't let random guys walk up to student windows. Before I could even get up, I heard a soft thunk, and then the window slid a little wider. I spun around. Riker was halfway through climbing in, muddy boots, ripped jacket, backpack that smelled like wet dog. "Dude," I whisper shouted. "Are you insane? You can't, this is not the freaking park." He dropped inside, grinning like he'd just pulled off a bank heist. "Relax, man. I've done this 100 times at other dorms." "Yeah, that doesn't make it normal." He shrugged, kicked his boots off, and made himself at home on my bed, like he was claiming territory. Then he said the sentence I'd heard 100 times but still dreaded. "I need to crash here for a couple days." In Riker speak, a couple days meant until I get kicked out again. I sighed. Why? What happened now? He laughed in that fake-as-hell laugh of his. Too loud, too performative, like he wanted the whole building to hear him. Long story. People don't get me. They're sheep. I'm too real for them. Same script every time. Riker dug into his backpack and pulled out a stack of books. At first I thought they were textbooks he stole from the library again, but no. He shoved the first one at me. "Look, dude. Real power. The Infernal Path. Rituals of the Shadow Gate." Some self-published occult book with a goat-headed symbol on the cover. Then another. The Black Meridian. Blood Rites for Manifestation. Then another. The Grimmer Ledger of Avernus. All of them worn, some with little white library tags still stuck on the spine. He leaned back. "Been getting into, deeper stuff lately. Deeper stuff like satanic rituals." He smirked. "If that's what normies call it, sure. Riker, these are library books." So did you even check them out?" "Why would I? Knowledge belongs to everyone, bro." I buried my face in my hands. He kept going. You ever felt like Christianity is just, I don't know, allergic to you? He made a weird hacking sound like he was imitating vomiting. Like, goddamn, your soul is too spicy for church? Riker, I literally go to church. He grinned. Yeah, and I respect that, dude. But I'm on a different plane now. Demon stuff, real magic. Those books aren't real. He tapped his temple dramatically. Power's real if you believe it. 3 days later, it got worse. I was walking through Willow Creek Central Park with a coffee in hand, earbuds in, heading to class. That's when I saw him, Riker, sitting with a bunch of high school emo kids near the skate ramp. Only he wasn't just talking, he was performing, hands in the air. An occult book opened on his lap, and the kids were watching him like he was some edgy prophet. I froze behind a tree. He said loudly, I can grant wishes if you do a ritual with me. It's intimate magic. My stomach dropped. There was a girl with black hair and a pink streak sitting closest to him. She couldn't have been older than 15. Her name was Talia Moreno, little sister of my friend from work. Riker kept leaning closer to her. Demons respond to sacrifice, you know. Blood, connection, energy. I can show you how it works. She looked uncomfortable but curious. I whispered, holy hell, Riker, what the are you doing? A group of guys from my class walked by and called me over for a second. I answered them quickly, but when I turned back, Riker and Talia were gone. I sprinted to the corner store. Sure enough, there was Talia standing outside, twirling her sleeves nervously. Talia, I said gently, where's Riker? She hesitated. Then the doorbells jingled, and Riker came out carrying 2 six-packs of beer. When he saw me, his face twisted, like I'd ruined his plan. Bro, he hissed, can I talk to you? He dragged me aside. Don't cockblock me, man. She asked me to buy her beer. Riker, she's 14. Are you out of your mind? She's cool, mature for her age. Riker, no, absolutely not. He glared like I'd betrayed him on a spiritual level. Man, you always think you're holier than thou. She wants to come hang. What's hanging? You live nowhere. Andy's place, he muttered. We're going there. Andy. One of our friends lived in a sloppy 3-bedroom apartment where Riker occasionally crashed. I didn't trust this, but I had to get to work. So I called Andy immediately. Dude, Riker's bringing a 14-year-old girl to your place with beer. Stop whatever he's planning. Andy responded instantly. What? Hours later, after work, I checked my phone. 13 missed calls. From Andy, Talia's brother Mateo, and even Riker. I called Andy back first. His voice was furious. Bro, Riker tried to get Talia drunk. Like for real, right in my living room. What happened? Mateo came flying in like a goddamn tornado, man. He beat the hell out of Riker, knocked him to the floor. We dragged him outside and he ran off, bleeding. My hands shook. Is Talia okay? She's home. She's scared. She kept saying Riker told her she was chosen for some ritual. I sat down slowly. And where's Riker now? No clue. He stormed off babbling some crazy satads about awakening the gate and how we'd all regret humiliating him. When I finally got home, I headed to my garage basement to grab laundry. The lights were off, but someone was breathing in the dark. Slow, wet, uneven. My blood went cold. I flipped the switch. Riker was sitting cross-legged on the concrete floor, shirtless, his entire chest smeared in red streaks. In front of him sat one of his occult books, and beside it, a 64-ounce slushy cup filled halfway with blood. My breath caught. Riker. What the hell? He was holding a thin knife, the blade dripping. He looked up with a swollen face, eyes purple, lips cracked, clearly from Mateo's punches. Dude, he whispered hoarsely, they're all dead. I froze. What? He shook his head violently. No, not dead, but they're gonna be. You'll see. Blood answers blood. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. You need help, I said quietly. You're bleeding. Put the knife down. Riker smiled. Not a normal smile, a stretched one. Too wide, too calm. I'm doing the rite of Vexillum. It demands blood. Mine, theirs. Yours if you don't shut up. I slowly reached for my phone. He noticed. No cops, he snarled. I swear to God, if you call anyone. I stepped out of the basement and dialed Andy. 2 minutes later, Andy and Liam pulled up. We went into the basement together. Riker lunged at us once, wild, frantic, but he was too weak. We pinned him, dragged him up the stairs, out the back door, and threw him onto the wet grass. Andy yelled, "If you ever come near Talia again, or anyone underage, we'll bury you under the goddamn highway." Riker sat there shivering, bleeding, staring at us like we'd betrayed him in some ancient pact. He whispered, "You're all wrong. You think you're safe, but the gate knows your names now." Then he limped away into the darkness. Over the next 15 years, Riker became something like a legend in Willow Creek, though not the cool kind. People whispered about him behind gas station counters. Parents told their kids to avoid the guy with the long black coat and the empty stare. Rumors flew everywhere. He tried to perform rituals in the woods. He stole girls' shoes for altar offerings. He lived in an abandoned RV near the cliffs. He got arrested twice for public disturbance involving bodily fluids. He never approached me again. But every so often, if I passed him on the street, he'd give me this slow, hateful stare that made my stomach twist. I realized later, the scariest people aren't the ones who believe in demons. It's the ones who believe the world owes them something and who think hurting others is justified for the ritual. Riker didn't summon demons. He became one in the human, real-world sense. I never thought the quiet back roads outside of Haverbrook, Oregon would become the setting for the biggest mistake of my life. But looking back, maybe that's exactly why it happened. Places that feel safe are where you let your guard down. Places that feel like home are where the wrong people can get closest. And in my case, that wrong person was Jace Wyatt. I met Jace when we were 13, right after my parents moved us from Portland to a rundown farmhouse outside town. He lived only a 15-minute drive away, and he was the first kid who actually talked to me like I wasn't an outsider. He was funny, bold, careless in the way that made middle school boys seem invincible. We clicked stupidly fast. But people like Jace don't stay careless forever. Eventually, that kind of chaos grows fangs. By the time I turned 32, I had been living alone in my small countryside home for 4 years. I worked maintenance at a manufacturing plant in Haverbrook, and honestly, most nights were quiet. My closest neighbors were half a mile up the road. Out here, the nights got so dark and so still, you could hear the wind shifting through the pines like they were whispering. I used to think the silence was comforting. Not anymore. And it all began because I gave Jace one more chance. The backstory I never told anyone. Back in high school, Jace became different. I don't mean the usual teenage hormones or mood swings. I mean, he started pushing boundaries just to see how people reacted. Teachers, strangers, me. Pranks turned into vandalism. Vandalism turned into breaking into people's sheds for fun and taking random shit he didn't need. He always said the same thing. "Bro, relax. It ain't that deep." But it was deep. And I was too stupid, too loyal, too used to his energy to push him out of my life. After graduation, life took us separate ways. I joined the plant. He bounced between odd jobs, couch surfed, burned bridges. Everyone who got close to him ended up regretting it, including me. I cut him off when I was 26 after he stole the keys to my truck and took it joyriding with a couple idiots from town. It came back with a cracked headlight and mud caked inside the cab. He didn't apologize. He actually laughed. That was the last straw, and I blocked him on everything. 6 years passed, and then 2 months ago, he popped up again. He messaged me from a new number. "Yo, been a minute. I'm in town. Can we talk?" I should have deleted it. But sometimes familiarity is a poison you forget is poison. I agreed to meet him for coffee. He looked rough, older, slimmer, eyes darting like he owed someone money, but he hugged me like we were still kids. "Damn, man, I missed you," he said. I didn't say it back. I should have walked away that day. But I told myself letting an old friend talk wasn't the end of the world. I was wrong. The day everything felt off, the night it happened, I had spent the entire day at home. It was a rare day off. Gray sky, light drizzle on and off. That earthy scent of wet pine drifting through the windows. I cleaned, watched a game, fried up some chicken, and just chilled. Nothing weird, nothing unusual. Not until nighttime. Around 9, I locked up the downstairs, shut off the lights, and went to my bedroom upstairs. My place was cozy, not fancy. Sloped ceiling, ranch-style roof, the kind of house built way before insulation was invented. Creaky floors, drafty windows, all the countryside charm and all the countryside problems. I got into bed and put on a YouTube video, letting it play while I scrolled through my phone. That's when I heard it. Faint, muffled. Voices. Outside. At first I paused the video because I thought it was coming from my phone. But no, it was outside my window. Low, whispery, more than one person, two or more men. I sat up listening harder. The tone was wrong. They weren't talking like people who were lost. They were talking like people trying not to be heard. A cold ripple went through my chest. Nobody walks around my property. Hell, nobody should even be near it unless they know it's there. I walked to the window slowly. As soon as I got close, the voices stopped. Instant silence, like they had been watching the window. A chill ran down my neck so hard I froze. The yard was pitch black, just the porch light glimmering softly across the old gravel path. I whispered to myself, Nah, no way. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I backed away from the window. For a few minutes, I just stood there breathing slowly, trying to convince myself it was people passing by. But nobody passes by, so I checked every window in the house. Kitchen, dark. Living room, dark. Laundry room, dark. Nothing. But that didn't comfort me. If anything, not seeing anything made it worse. The paranoia that kicked in. After half an hour of pacing around the house, I finally grabbed my flashlight and cracked open the front door. Wind rustling, crickets. My porch light is humming. But the second I stepped out onto the porch, an overwhelming sensation hit me, like there were eyes on me from somewhere among the trees. Not one pair, multiple. My chest tightened. My scalp tingled. I whispered under my breath, "Don't be stupid. It's your imagination." But it didn't feel like imagination. It felt like being hunted. I shut the door and locked it fast. And just like that, the feeling eased, which somehow made it worse, because it made no sense. I got a glass of water, went upstairs, forced myself to lie down, and eventually, after what felt like forever, I fell asleep for maybe 3 or 4 hours. Then the nightmare began. The shattering, a violent crash snapped me awake. Glass exploding, close, too close, right outside my room. My heart slammed into my ribs, and I jumped out of bed without thinking. I yanked open my bedroom door. Shattered glass was everywhere. The small hallway window overlooking the backyard was obliterated. A fist-sized rock lay on the floor among the shards. I whispered, "What the hell?" And then, voices again. But now I'm yelling. At least 4, maybe 5. Shouting things I couldn't fully make out. Commands. Orders. And while I listened, heavy slams hit the front door downstairs. Violent. Intentional. The whole house shook with each impact. My stomach dropped. More windows shattering downstairs. I ran back into my bedroom and locked the door with shaking hands. My breaths were sharp, uneven. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. "Hello? Yes?" My voice cracked. "There's people breaking into my house. Right now. They're smashing windows and—" "Stay on the line, sir. Officers have been dispatched." I heard it. The front door gave way. A thunderous crash. Then, footsteps. Lots of footsteps. Heavy boots pounding into the entryway. Men yelling over each other. Someone is laughing. Laughing. As if it was a game. My throat tightened. The dispatcher said, "Police are about 5 minutes out." 5 minutes. 5 minutes might as well have been an hour. The bedroom door rattled suddenly. 3 hard bangs. Then a voice. "Hey, buddy, open up, man." Another voice mocking. "Come on, don't make this weird." My blood ran ice cold. I backed up quickly, eyes darting around the room. I had only one option. The window. The one that opened onto the sloped roof. Dangerous. Dumb. Risky. But staying inside was worse. I climbed out onto the roof, pulling the window shut behind me. The shingles were cold, rough beneath my palms. I crawled up toward the top of the roof, trying not to slip down toward the edge. Inside, the men smashed the door open. Their footsteps flooded into the room. One guy yelled, "Where'd he go?" "Check the closet, check under the bed, something." Someone else muttered, "Bro, he's here somewhere, we saw his light." I held my breath as if they could hear it through the roof. They tore through the room, through the upstairs hallway, cursing and slamming things around. Their frustration grew. I heard one spit angrily, "Dude's making this difficult." Another snapped, "We'll find him, chill." Those words cut through me. This wasn't random. They weren't here to steal. They were here for me. The sirens. I stayed frozen on the roof for what felt like a full hour, but was probably closer to 10 minutes. Then, faint in the distance, sirens. The men reacted instantly. Boots thudding, shouting, a scramble of panic, doors opening, slamming, footsteps running out into the night. The sirens got louder, and as they did, the last of the footsteps disappeared into the woods behind my house. I stayed on the roof until flashlights swept my property and officers called up to me. I climbed down carefully, legs shaky. When I finally stepped onto the ground, adrenaline rushed out of me so fast I nearly collapsed. The first officer said, "Sir, we're gonna make sure you're okay. Just breathe." But I wasn't okay. Because when they asked if I had any idea why this happened, I told them no. And technically that was true. At that moment, I had no idea. But the next day, I got my answer. A horrible, bone-deep answer. The call that explained everything. By morning, my house looked like a crime documentary. Broken windows, mud tracked everywhere, furniture overturned, nothing was stolen, not one thing. The sheriff asked, "You sure you don't know anyone who'd want to hurt you?" I shook my head. Then my phone vibrated. A text from a number not saved in my phone. Unknown. "Yo, are you good?" My blood ran ice cold. I typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots. Then, "Don't be like that, man. It's me, Jace." I stared at his name until my vision blurred. Another message came through before I could respond. "Heard some shit went down at your place last night. Crazy world, huh?" I didn't move. I didn't blink. A third message. "Call me. Need to talk." I didn't. Instead, I blocked the number. But that didn't stop the truth from sinking in. He knew. He knew something happened. He texted before the news was out. Before anyone knew except me, the attackers, and the cops. And the voices, the joking ones at the door. The tone felt familiar. It hit me so hard I felt sick. I recognized one of them. Very faintly, but I did. One of the guys that laughed. I'd heard that laugh before. Years ago, hanging out behind the school with Jace. The final visit that night. Before sunset hit, I packed a duffel, called my sister in Washington, and told her I was coming for a while. Around 8:30 p.m., while I was finishing packing, my motion sensor light clicked on outside. I froze. Then, a knock on the door. Not violent, not urgent, just a knock. 3 slow taps. Then a voice. "Yo, it's just me, man. Open up." My entire body went rigid. It was him. Jace. He was here, at my house. After what happened, I didn't move. Not an inch. He knocked again, more annoyed this time. "Dude, stop being weird. I just want to talk." I didn't speak, didn't breathe, didn't make a sound. He waited for maybe 15 seconds. Then he tried the doorknob. It rattled softly, locked. He let out a frustrated exhale. "You really gonna do me like that?" he muttered through the door. His tone dropped lower, darker, colder. "Thought we were boys?" My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my teeth. He stood there for a long moment. Then, "Fine. Whatever. We'll finish this some other time." His footsteps walked away. Silence. After 30 minutes, I looked out the back window from behind the curtain. His car was gone, but the fear he left behind stayed heavy in my chest. The part that still haunts me. The cops suggested I stay somewhere else for a bit. I drove to my sister's the next morning. 2 days later, I got an email from an old classmate I hadn't talked to in years. The subject line, "You need to see this." Inside was a link to a private social media profile belonging to a guy Jace used to hang out with, Tyrell. Posted 3 days before the break-in, a picture of 4 guys standing in the woods, camouflage, gloves, masks around their necks, bottles in their hands. The caption, "Squad getting ready for some late-night fun. Haverbrook's gonna remember us." My stomach dropped to the floor. There were 4 of them, and Jace had liked the post. Not only did I like it, commented, "Let's get it." Police later identified 2 of the men from the photo. Both had criminal records. Both were known to hang around with Jace whenever he came through town. But they couldn't prove he was one of the intruders. Couldn't prove he planned it. Couldn't prove he was the one who wanted me. Even though deep down, I was certain. And when I thought back to his text message the next morning, "Yo, are you good? Crazy world, huh?" My hands would shake. He wasn't checking on me. He was checking if they had gotten me. Where I am now, It's been 3 weeks. I'm still staying with my sister. I can't sleep fully. I wake up at every noise. Every car on the street makes me tense. My house back in Haverbrook has boarded windows now. The sheriff is trying to increase patrols, but it doesn't matter, because this wasn't random. This was personal. And the worst part, I keep thinking about what he said through the door. We'll finish this some other time. Every day I wonder, did he mean it? Was it a bluff? Or is he somewhere nearby, watching, waiting for when I finally come home? That's the thing about bad friends. You don't realize the real damage they can do until it's too late. And with Jace, I think the damage has only just begun. I didn't grow up imagining I'd ever end up in Los Angeles. If you'd asked an 18-year-old me what I wanted out of life, I probably would have said something stupid like a place where the sun doesn't fry my skin off. But somehow, when you're in your mid-20s, still figuring out your sexuality and craving a sense of community after growing up in a small, judgment-heavy mountain town, you end up exactly where you never expected to be. LA felt like a possibility. LA felt like the first place where I could breathe without checking over my shoulder. LA felt like home, or at least it did for a while. I moved into a tiny Koreatown apartment with thrift store furniture, one flickering hallway light that scared the hell out of me every night, and a landlord who kept calling me Mija, even though I corrected him every month. But honestly, I loved it. I loved the mess, the noise, the fact that I could step outside at 1 a.m. and grab tacos without being judged. And I loved the people, or at least I thought I did. That's where one particular person comes in. A guy named Jax, not Jackson, not Jackson, not Jake, not some cute abbreviation, just Jax. He said he named himself that because it sounded cooler, which even now makes me cringe. I met Jax at a drag night in Silver Lake, where some queen with purple eyebrows and glitter down to her clavicle was doing a chaotic lip sync to a Doja Cat song. Jax bumped into me at the bar, spilling mezcal all over my skirt before going, "Oh my God, babe, I am so sorry. You look like an angel dipped in tequila." He was dramatic, loud, hilarious, and for a lonely transplant in a new city, dangerously charming. We clicked instantly. He was a gay Latino guy from East LA, flamboyant, messy, always wearing sunglasses at night like he was hiding from paparazzi. And me, a pansexual woman who mostly fell for men, had never met someone who felt so immediately magnetic. We became inseparable, and if someone had told me back then that this same man would one day nearly end my life, I probably would have told them to go touch grass. It was late July, and LA was doing that thing where the heat doesn't back off even after the sun goes down. My apartment AC was busted, again, and I was standing in front of a cheap oscillating fan like it was the love of my life. That night, a huge rooftop party was happening downtown at a place called the Edison Sky Bar. You know, one of those spots influencers pretend they just randomly discovered. A DJ from Miami was playing, drinks were free before 10, and the crowd was expected to be half queer, half straight, all chaotic. Perfect. Jax came over for the pregame, which was normal. What wasn't normal was how jittery he looked. He walked in pacing, tapping his fingers on every surface, his leg bouncing like a jackhammer. His bleached hair was sticking up in the back like he'd run his hands through it 1,000 times. "Yo, why are you moving like you drank 12 Red Bulls?" I asked. "Girl," he said, throwing himself dramatically onto my sofa, "I met someone." "Ooh, tell me everything." He didn't smile, didn't blush. I didn't get excited. Instead, he said quietly, "Nah, it's not romantic. It's just someone new, someone I'm hanging with." That should have been a red flag, but I didn't see it. I just laughed and grabbed 2 seltzers from the fridge. We put on music, talked about work, complained about rent, argued about the best taco truck on Western Avenue. Everything felt normal again, until I casually mentioned that I'd matched with a new guy on Tinder named Riley and was planning to meet him at the party. That's when Jax froze, like, absolutely froze. His seltzer halfway to his mouth, his eyes locked on me, expression blank. "You're meeting him? Tonight?" he asked. "Yeah, he's gonna be there. Pretty cute. Tattoos. I work in sound engineering." Jax set his drink down slowly. "Babe, why the hell would you meet some random dude from an app? In downtown? At night?" I rolled my eyes. "Okay, Grandma, it's LA. Everyone meets from apps." "Not everyone," he snapped. "You shouldn't." "Jax, what are you talking about? You meet guys from apps all the time." He shook his head violently. No, it's different." "How?" He didn't answer. Instead, He got up and started pacing my living room like he was on the phone with demons. "People are missing out here," he muttered. "People vanish downtown. You think you're safe? You think these men don't know how to overpower you?" The tone in his voice made my stomach twist. "Okay, what's actually going on? Because this isn't about Riley." "Yes, it is," he screamed. I flinched. Jax never screamed. The room went dead quiet, except for the old fan rattling in the corner. He ran both hands through his hair, gripping it. I don't want something to happen to you," he whispered. "You don't get it." I approached him slowly. "Jax, talk to me. What's wrong?" He didn't look at me, didn't move, just whispered, "Please don't meet him." I thought he was just being overprotective. Annoying, sure, but harmless. I turned back to my mirror to finish putting on lipstick, telling him, "Look, I appreciate the concern, but I'm not a child. I can handle myself." That's when I saw it in the mirror. Jax standing behind me, expression empty, eyes dark, face too still. "Jax," I said softly. He didn't respond. Instead, he stepped closer. "Why do you never listen?" he said quietly, almost calmly. "What?" His hand shot out, arm locking around my neck, pulling me backward. "What the hell? Jax, stop!" He tightened his grip. My lungs seized, choking on air. I clawed at his arm, my nails digging into his skin, but he didn't flinch. "You're small," he hissed into my ear. "You think you can fight a man bigger than you? Stranger from downtown. You think you could stop him?" My vision blurred around the edges, lights dimming, panic exploding in my chest. "Let go of me!" I elbowed him as hard as I could. There was a cracking sound, maybe bone, maybe something else, and he stumbled back with a shriek, but instead of stopping, he snapped. His face twisted with something feral, like some switch in his brain flipped into a place that didn't recognize me at all. "You hurt me," he growled, and then he rammed me forward. My face hit the mirror. Glass exploded. Pain flashed white hot. I collapsed to the floor, blood running down into my eyes. Before I could breathe, he was on top of me, punching, screaming, his fists slamming into my cheek, jaw, shoulder, temple. I felt something in my mouth crack, a tooth. "Stop! Jack, stop!" I screamed, slapping wildly, grabbing his hair, his shirt, anything. He didn't stop. He kept yelling, "You don't listen! You don't listen! You don't listen!" I spat blood straight into his face. He froze. For a moment, everything stopped. The hitting, the screaming, the world. Then Jack stumbled back, eyes wide, horrified. What did, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God! He shot to his feet and started pacing frantically, ripping at his shirt, breathing in panicked gasps. "No, no, 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 they're watching, they're watching." "Jax," I sobbed, "please stop, you're scaring me." But he didn't hear me. He wasn't even in the same reality anymore. I found out later, much later, that Jax had taken something earlier that day. Something he thought was just coke, but that batch had been laced with something synthetic, something that could cause temporary psychosis in high doses. I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was that my best friend had tried to kill me. Jax suddenly stopped pacing. He sat on my sofa and began softly crying. Not frantic, not panicked, just sitting there, weeping like a child. "Jax," I whispered. No response. I crawled toward my phone, grabbed it with shaking hands, and called 911. When the cops arrived, Jax didn't fight, didn't talk, didn't even look at me. They took him away in cuffs. I was taken to the hospital, broken tooth, bruised ribs, concussion, glass cuts all over my forehead, neck, and arms. The ER nurse held my hand and said, "Sweetheart, you're lucky to be alive." And I knew she was right. People always say trauma hits you in waves. What they don't tell you is that the aftershocks can drag on for months, even years. Jax was put on a psychiatric hold. The dealer was arrested after several others reported the same contaminated stuff. Friends urged me to press charges, but I said no, on one condition: Jax paid for my dental repair, and he stayed the hell away from me forever. He agreed, and then he disappeared from my life like smoke. I don't hate him, I don't wish him pain, but I will never, ever feel safe around him again. Some things you just cannot come back from. Some friendships are like cracks in glass. Once they break, they stay broken, no matter how much you try to piece them back together. And some people, Some people carry storms inside them you never see until it's too late. Wherever Jax is now, I only hope he's not hurting anyone else, because as much as it destroys me to admit it, I know he's capable of it. I didn't plan on spending last Halloween alone, but that's exactly how it ended up. An empty house, a half-finished bottle of cheap Merlot on the counter, and me pacing around like a guy twice my age because my plans fell apart at the last minute. It wasn't supposed to be like that. I was supposed to be at a small house party across town. Good people, co-workers, neighbors, the normal, harmless kind of folks who actually make adulthood feel less lonely. But around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from my buddy Sean. "The party's canceled, bro. Long story. Rain check?" Rain check. On Halloween. Great. To be honest, I didn't fight it. I'd had a long week. Work had been insane. Month-end reports, malfunctioning equipment, and a supervisor who thought caffeine counted as a personality. So when everything got canceled, I told myself it was fine. But deep down, I felt something else. A weird heaviness. A weird emptiness. The kind that creeps up when your plans vanish, and suddenly you're alone with your thoughts. And that's always dangerous for me, because my thoughts have a way of circling back to one person. Lyle. The worst friend I've ever had. The guy who nearly destroyed my life long before I realized what he really was. Backstory. The friend who learned me too well. I met Lyle Brenton in 7th grade. Quiet kid, skinny as hell. Dark hair is always in his eyes. He had this awkward, almost fragile vibe that made you want to be nice to him, which is exactly how he reeled you in. He never smiled the right way, never laughed at the right time, but he was smart, the dangerous kind of smart, the kind that figures people out like puzzles. He'd mimic whatever you liked. He'd agree with everything you said. He had this way of listening that made you feel important, until you realized something later. He wasn't listening because he cared. He was listening because he was collecting details, habits, weaknesses, and he'd use them against you, against everyone. By freshman year of high school, I'd already pulled away from him. Not a dramatic breakup, not a fight, just distance, a quiet, necessary escape. He didn't take it well, but he didn't confront me either. That wasn't his style. Instead, he spread rumors, twisted stories, turned people against me in small, subtle ways. Never enough for me to accuse him directly, always enough to damage something, relationships, friendships, reputation. But then, like a miracle, his family moved out of town our junior year. His dad got a job in Idaho, and just like that, Lyle was gone. I didn't celebrate openly, but that day, I slept peacefully for the first time in months, and for almost a decade, I never heard his name again. No calls, no messages, no sightings, no reason to think he'd ever come back. Halloween, present day. So there I was, sitting in my living room, watching an old horror movie I'd seen too many times. My living room is small, couch against the wall, TV directly opposite, kitchen on the left, 2 big front windows on the right. I always kept the curtains closed. Folks on American suburban streets know exactly why. At night, a lit window is like a stage, and you become the show. So I settled in with my blanket, a bowl of chips, and the cheap Merlot I pretended was wine for relaxing. Around midnight, I noticed something, a flicker, a shadow, movement near the front window. I brushed it off, probably a car driving by. Then it happened again, then again. By the 5th time, I muttered, "Aight, man, enough." I walked over and pulled the curtain aside. The street was empty, mostly, except for a guy wandering around near the mailbox across the street. Jeans, dark hoodie, head low like he couldn't see straight. He shuffled left, stopped, turned around, shuffled right. I looked drunk as hell. I checked the time, 12:57 a.m. Yeah, classic Halloween, I whispered to myself. I wasn't concerned, just confused why he kept coming back and forth like he forgot where he lived. I watched him for another second, shrugged and closed the curtains. The movement stopped after that. I got comfortable again. I pulled the blanket over my legs, sipped more wine, and for a bit, everything felt normal. Until the knock. The door. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't polite. It was a hard, intentional knock, knock, knock that echoed down the hallway. Every muscle in my body froze. My eyes snapped toward the door. I waited, hold my breath. Another knock, slower this time. Knock, knock, knock. I crept toward the door and checked the peephole. My stomach turned. The drunk guy from the street wasn't drunk anymore. He stood perfectly still on my porch. Straight posture, arms at his sides, eyes wide open, staring at my doorknob. Not at me, at the knob. I whispered, barely audible. What the hell? His head tilted slightly, like he sensed me. Then he leaned forward, slow and unnatural, until his forehead almost touched the door. And in this low, breathy voice, he murmured, "I know you're right there." My heart nearly stopped. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After 10 seconds of horrifying silence, he turned around and walked away, calm, steady, not a hint of drunkenness in his steps. I backed away from the door until my legs hit the couch. Yeah, nope, absolutely not. I poured another glass of wine with shaking hands. I didn't sleep. Didn't blink much either. But the night wasn't finished with me. The tapping. 3:13 a.m. I had just started scrolling through my phone to distract myself when a sound came from the opposite side of the house. A faint tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. "Not again," I whispered, standing up. I walked down the hallway toward the family room. The tapping grew louder. Tap, tap, tap. My chest tightened with every step. When I reached the room, everything was dark. Only the backyard security light faintly backlit the window. I stood still. The tapping kept going. I swallowed, moved closer, and then I saw him. A silhouette, tall, still, standing right outside the glass. He raised his hand slowly and tapped again with something metal. Tap, tap, tap. I whispered, "Oh my God." Not loud, but he heard it. He froze, turned his head, looked directly at me. I stumbled backwards, choking on my breath. My voice was trembling as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The operator answered. 911. "What's your emergency?" Someone's outside my house. Same guy who knocked earlier. He's at the back window now. He's been watching me all night. Please, just send someone." She kept me talking, but the tapping didn't stop. Even while I whispered, even while I begged for officers to hurry, he kept tapping. Tap, tap, tap. When I peeked around the corner again, he straightened up, turned slowly, and walked into the darkness. The police and the truth. When officers arrived, they swept the yard, checked every door, every window. Footprints, smudges, nothing else. Officer Hill asked, "You sure you don't know anyone who fits that description?" I opened my mouth fast. No, not at all. But that was a lie. Because deep down, I knew exactly who it felt like. The posture, the stillness, the quiet, creeping behavior. It was Lyle all over again. But why now? Why after 10 years? The police found nothing. I thanked them. They told me to call if anything else happened. 2 weeks passed, and then it came. A plain white envelope in my mailbox. My name written across the front in handwriting I knew better than I wanted to. Inside was a single sentence. "We're not done." No signature, no explanation. Just the same handwriting that used to leave notes in my locker in 7th grade. Lyle. He had found me, watched me, tapped on my window, knocked on my door. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't confused. He was waiting. Waiting to see if I'd open the door. Waiting to see if I'd call his name. Waiting to see if I was still the easy target I once was. Sometimes at night, when the neighborhood goes dead quiet, I swear I hear it again. That slow, calculated tapping. Tap, tap, tap. And every time I do, I tell myself it's nothing. A tree branch, a pipe, my imagination. But deep down, I know exactly what it is. Lyle always finishes what he starts.